Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about how marginal cost curves can shift around. So this is going to be really similar to what we talked about when we looked at demand functions and how demand functions can shift around in the consumer unit. So just like when we did demand, when we derived a marginal cost function in this unit, we started with isocost and isoquant graph, and this was our optimal production bundle of how much capital and labor to use. The straight line is the isocost line, and then the curved line, that's the isoquant line. So this was our initial quantity Q0, and then as if we wanted to expand production, we would have to shift our isoquants out further and further. And at each cost level, we could figure out the quantity that we would produce. The thing to keep in mind is that notice that these lines were parallel shifts out. So that means that the wage rate and the rental rate for capital stay constant as we are making a marginal cost curve. So our marginal cost curve would look like this. So we might get a line that looks like this. And the horizontal axis is quantity. The vertical axis would be cost or price, but either way it's in dollars. So as we're generating this line here, we are assuming that wages and rental rates stay the same. Just like when we were deriving demand curves, we assumed that things like income, the price of other goods, all that stuff stayed constant. If any of those things change, that's going to shift the marginal cost curve. So just like with demand functions, if anything that was not the price of X changed, so income, the price of a related good, consumer taste, that would create a shift in the demand curve. So now when we're looking at marginal cost curves, changes in wage rates or rental rates for capital or technological advancement, all that stuff that was assumed to be constant when we were deriving a marginal cost curve, if those things change, we're going to get a shift in the curve. So let's look at what some of those shifts might look like. It's all going to be pretty similar to when we were looking at shifts in demand. Okay, so here is a potential starting off point. In this graph, we've got, so our marginal cost is on the vertical axis, so marginal cost, hello? No, Igor, did Igor just die? No, I've got to back up Igor. Okay, so marginal cost, price, whatever you want to call it, is on the vertical axis, and then horizontal axis is quantity. So here, our initial equilibrium would be right here at 21 units. So what would happen if a new minimum wage law went into effect? Meaning raising the wages, that's just going to be a hard thing for me. Raising the wages that the firms have to use. So now, what would happen is that at every quantity, it would now be more expensive to produce that quantity. So we would get a shift that looks like this. So boop, our costs went up. Right. So now our new equilibrium would be somewhere over here. I think I have an actual graph of it on the next slide. So here, because wage rates went up, that's going to cause a shift in our cost curve. It's going to cost us more to produce because we had to pay people more. Okay. So I think there's an official graph on the next slide. And so when you think about, there we go. When you think about this shift, just graphically, there are two ways to think about it that turn out to be the same. So we can think about it as at a specific quantity, our cost curve shifted up. So now at any given quantity, it is now more expensive to produce that same quantity. So here, if we think about this was 21 units. Initially, we were able to produce 21 units at a marginal cost of $6. Now our marginal cost to produce 21 units looks like maybe $8.75. So our marginal cost has gone up for any given amount that we are producing. The other way to think about it is as a leftward shift. Right, so here we can think about it as the marginal cost curve moved left. So at any given cost, so here our marginal cost was, this is the $5 marginal cost. It used to be that we could produce, it looks like 12, 14, 17 goods for a marginal cost of 5. Now we can only, at the marginal cost of 5, we can only produce, looks like about 5 units. So you can either think of this shift as at any given quantity, it's more, our marginal cost goes up, so that's the vertical shift up, or you can think of it as a leftward shift. For any given marginal cost, we can produce fewer units. Either way, however you want to think about it, whatever floats your boat. Okay, so there's a question down here. Will profits be higher or lower at point B compared to point A? So if you think about this, the price per unit that we're getting hasn't changed. The price per unit is still still $6, but we're producing fewer items. So we've shifted to the left. If we are still getting the same price per unit and we are producing fewer units, our profit will be smaller. So profit will go down. So speaking of profit and shifts, let's take a look at this. So what we're about to see is similar to what we did with consumer surplus on the demand side. We're not going to do that yet. We're going to do another example of this. So here we start with a marginal cost curve. It's the red line. Then there's some advance in technology. So the machines I use to produce my goods, they get like better, they faster, smarter, smaller, I don't know, whatever the case is, more fuel efficient, yada, yada, yada. Whatever it is, what happens when technology advances is that our marginal cost curve shifts outwards. So you can think about it as an outward shift like this. So this way of thinking, it would be at a given marginal cost, I can now produce more goods because my technology got more efficient. You could also think of it as a downward shift. Right? Costs are dropping because our technology got better. So now at a given quantity, my marginal cost to produce that number of goods is going to be lower because more efficient technology is better and cheaper. So either way you think about it, that's what that kind of shift will do. This example is talking about an increase in the technology of an increase in the efficiency of technology. If there was like an advance in human capital, so let's say the people that you were employing got more efficient somehow, maybe their education level increased or something like that, you would see a similar shift to this. Anything that makes your inputs more productive, that doesn't affect their costs, like the wage rate or the rental rate will improve your marginal cost function. Okay, so now I think we're going to talk about profit, and also known as producer surplus. Okay. Okay, so this is similar to what we were doing with consumer surplus in the last unit. So here we have a diagram. It has a marginal cost curve on it and a price line. So when we think about this, so this firm is selling 21 units, right? So their marginal cost for those units was different. The marginal cost started really low. When you look over here, the first unit was a low marginal cost, and then marginal cost as we are producing units gets higher and higher. Eventually we produce at the point where our marginal cost is equal to the price. You can think of the price as our marginal revenue. So on our first unit that we sold, we were able to sell it for much more than it cost us to make. So this area in yellow might be the surplus that we made or the profit we made on our first unit. Then when we sold our second unit, we were still able to sell it for way more than it cost us to produce, so we captured a profit of about that much on the second unit, and so on and so forth. As we are continuing to sell units, we are making more when we sell it for $6 and it costs us to make it. So on each unit, we are capturing some surplus, also known as profit on the producer side. And this will continue all the way up to the point where we, oh, that's actually kind of cool. It knows what angle I'm holding the pen at. Uncool. See, this is what happens when you compliment a technology. Come back. What happened? Okay, I don't know what just happened, but we're back. Anyway, so you're in the amount of profit that the producer is going to end up capturing is the area of this triangle, because as you move along, you capture a surplus on each unit. One of the questions down here is, what does rectangle ABDE mean? So that is this rectangle. All right, so ABDE, notice that this is the quantity the producer sold, and this is the price. So the area of this rectangle is just total revenue. So revenue just means how much money you brought in. So the company brought in this much money. Some of that money is going to be cost, and whatever's left over is going to be profit. We already know that the yellow area is the profit. So it shouldn't be surprising that the area underneath the marginal cost curve is total cost. And that makes sense because as I'm producing each unit, unit 1 cost me this much money to produce, right? And then the marginal cost of the second unit was right around here. So as I am producing more and more units, I am accumulating this cost, right? And so on and so forth, all the way up until I get to the quantity that I'm producing. So the whole rectangle, the green one, is how much money I brought in. The shaded blue rectangle is how much it cost me to produce those units. And then the leftover revenue that I brought in, the yellow area, that's my profit. So rectangle ABDE is revenue. And trapezoid ACDE, which is this guy down here, that's total cost. All right. Okay, so here's going to be a shift. I want you to go ahead on your sheet of paper, try to locate the areas that correspond to the change in producer surplus, also known as profit, and it'll pop up on the screen here in a second. So we start at A. There's some sort of shift that raises my cost here. In this example, it's that the rental rate of capital went up. Okay, so see if you can figure out which areas here represent change in producer surplus, and it'll pop up in a second. Okay, so here is the drawing. I am realizing that some of my colors got marked over. So the original producer surplus is actually this whole big triangle here that I'm making a triangle around. And then the new producer surplus is the much smaller green triangle because the amount that we're producing dropped a lot. So then the change in producer surplus is this purple trapezoid right around in here, and it will be negative because the amount that we're producing dropped. And that is it for this video. So I will talk to you all soon. Thanks for listening. Bye.